In the year of 2025, I don't think we've ever seen a start to the season like the one that we're in. I mean, every single week, game-winning field goals are getting blocks, punts are getting run back at a rate we haven't seen in ages, as we already have 6 punt return touchdowns in 4 weeks, which beats 2024 and 2022 combined, while already on the heels of what was a pretty good year in 2023. But to understand what is causing all of this chaos, we have to really understand where we've come from, and to do that, we have to go back. But if you want to spice up your game day, then you need to check out today's sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook. You know, for the longest time, the only thing that got me fired up about watching football was the special teams, but now I can add just a little bit of spice to every single game that I watch. And you can too, whether it's through the daily fantasy or hitting the money line like I like to do. And right now, if you go and use code PUNTS when you sign up for the first time, a $5 bet will win you $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Yeah, you heard that right. $5 bet, $200 in bonus bets as long as that bet wins. And let's just say that tonight I am absolutely slamming the under, as I think it is going to be a defensive heavyweight matchup. But with my history, hey, maybe you want to try to do the opposite of what I'm doing. But go spice up your games a little bit. Go to DraftKings.com. It's your first time signing up. Use code PUNTS. Spice up your game day. Thank me later. And remember to bet responsibly. So to truly understand this dilemma we're finding the NFL in, the best place to start, in my opinion, is the mid-90s. You see, at this point, special teams was the wild, wild west. Information on how to punt was extremely limited, punters and kickers weren't particularly good, and the league's ability to develop them was not much better. This resulted in the league being pretty stagnant for special teams. I mean, look at 1995. The league average punt was around 42 yards a punt, and the field goal percentage was right at 77.5. But when we jump forward 10 years, we had only managed to put together an extra half yard on punt and about 2.5 percentage points on field goal. And if you're wondering why this is, it's largely because the main focus was just on operation, how to get the ball off in a timely manner to bring down the stat that was haunting punters and kickers and coordinators, which was the number of kicks being blocked. You see, back then we, as a specialist unit, still had a long way to go. People would take long strides, many punters kept their drop tables really high, which just slowed them down as the ball had to fall a further distance before you kick it, and our long snapping situation was nowhere near as elite as it is today, so balls wouldn't come back nearly fast enough or with the same accuracy as we see now. And we can see that by 2002, the blocking situation was so bad that there were 22 separate punts blocked that year, which had the league on high alert. But by 2005, it was the first season where no team had allowed more than one punt to be blocked, and only 9 total punts were blocked that season. But despite a slight uptick for the next couple years after that, the attention for specialists once again had to be shifted, as we were about to enter the most terrifying time for specialists in the NFL, the start of returner mania. You see, specialists moving quicker and getting the ball off faster was great for avoiding blocks, but you started to create this problem in coverage once the ball did get off, that the gunners would have less time to get down the field and thus more room to return the kicks, which always has been a problem, hence the emphasis on direction to shorten the distance that one gunner has to run, and the emphasis on hang time to allow that same gunner more time to get down there. But while all of this seemed to be the perfect storm brewing, there really hadn't been a catalyst to really show the NFL how much fire they were playing with by going max protect and getting the ball off as fast as you can, until 2006, when a certain man entered the league by the name of Devin Hester. And let's just say he was the exact piece missing to show the entire league the error of their ways by neglecting to truly develop their specialists, and he wasn't the only one. Because in a competitive league like this, once one player starts to dominate in a certain way, there's going to be copycats. So Hester didn't just bring the league attention to the fact that you could actually consistently run back punts, but he started the punt apocalypse. After 4 years in the league, every team was trying to test their hand at Hester magic, as punters had gotten almost too fast to block, and punt return touchdowns had become the new hotness. And while I'm actually going to make a separate video on how Hester really rocked the NFL world in a much more detailed way than this, just know that for this video, what he did caused a lot, and I mean a lot of problems, to the point that the NFL was now scrambling trying to find and develop the best punters they could. And if you were a kicker who couldn't get it out the back of the end zone on kickoff, you were liable to be cut just for that, as the shift now went away from making big plays on special teams, but how do we not let our punt and kickoff units lose us the game to some of these dangerous returners? And this led to an increase of these exceedingly good punters entering the league, led by one man who never gets enough credit, Thomas Morstead, who is now showing the world how little ground you had to cover while still being an elite punter, which spearheaded a new movement in the punting world, on top of the rise of another problem that was coming out of colleges, being the dominance of Australian punters. This may seem like a totally unrelated field, but for a while, if you were a punt returner in college, you would get 3 to 4 years of practice against looks you'd probably see in the NFL, which was a pro formation and a spiral punt. But when Australians started taking over the college scene, it largely switched to a spread punt with a rollout and an end-over-end kick, which was the single most effective way to stop returns. I mean, if you were in the Big Ten, you were facing down guys like Adam Korzak, who in his senior year had negative 11 return yards against him. Do you know how nuts that is? Negative 11. Not only that, but college rules that allowed for free releases on the front line meant that these Aussies that were holding onto the ball longer would allow their coverage team to get down further, to make returning the ball even more of a nightmare at this level than it already was. So now there are less and less players entering the league with a high volume of punt returns like in the days past, and this is what I believe caused punt returners who were entering the league to be less daring to return more punts, as they were becoming more risk averse seeing these punts for the first time, as the total amount of punts being returned was dropping year by year. But because Australian punters were dominating the college field, to be an American punter, you had to be really good to not be replaced by an Australian. So now that means that the Americans that were able to go on and play at college had been forged by the fires of competition to even get a job. So now those same players were going to the NFL. They were some of the best we have ever seen, as we were now entering a punting and kicking golden age for the NFL in the early 2020s. Returners weren't as good as returning punts due to less practice. Punters were even better than ever. And oh yeah, kickers had still slowly but surely been getting better at hitting longer field goals, as by this point, if you couldn't connect comfortably from 60 or more yards, you were almost assuredly not even getting a look in the league. So now we're in the 2020s. Kickers and punters are literally the best that they've ever been for some of the factors listed above. Any of the top 15 guys right now would be all pros fighting for the best in the league a decade ago, but you're probably wondering, how does that have to do with blocks and returns? Shouldn't their effectiveness be limiting all of that? And to a degree, yes, but the thing is, kickers and punters started getting too good. Take, for instance, the jump that happened in average punt from 95 to 2005. It went up about a half a yard, but in that same decade after, it jumped a full 3 yards, and in another decade, it jumped 2 yards after that, meaning that yes, the average punter is hitting 47.5 yards a punt. And from my own 2 eyes, punters, if they're backed up, could hit it much further on average, but the field is simply not long enough. And this isn't just an NFL anomaly. To show how much better punters have gotten overall, it's even affecting the CFL, as one of their punters averaged 54 yards a punt in 2024. And before you come at me with some malarkey about their field being longer, his average completely shattered the previous record, which was lower than the NFL's 80-year-old record, and even broke the NFL's new 53.1 yard per punt record set by Ryan Stonehouse. So with kicking and punting becoming as dangerous as it is, and field goal kickers becoming too accurate from too far, something had to change. And we saw at first a little hint with the new kickoff rule. Yeah, it partly had to do with safety, but a larger part of it was taking control away from opposing kickers. If a kicker could just blast it out the back of the end zone, there was literally no way to scheme against it, and while a kicker can technically still do that, there's a much greater incentive for him not to, as the ball would now start at the 35-yard line. And for field goals, it's a play that's starting to be able to be run from way further back than ever before, and with kickers being more clutch than ever, game-winning field goals are more common than game-losing misses. misses. And punters, as my channel has highlighted, have been just hammering field positions, as we are now averaging in net punt, which was the average gross punt 2 decades ago. And since field goal kickers are routinely knocking on the door of some of the longest kicks ever, with more 60-yard field goal attempts any given weekend than an entire year from a decade ago, it appears that NFL coordinators are fighting back. They're not trying to pass new legislation, they're not changing anything, but applying more attention to detail on how to punish these kickers and punters. And I wish I could say it was one technique being implemented, but that's the thing. Pretty much every field goal is getting blocked from a different gap. Punts are being blocked in new and unique ways, and they're being returned from further back than ever. The one through line through blocked field goals is their timing. The one through line through the 6 punt return touchdowns is that 4 of them were returned from inside the 15-yard line. And if you've been watching, there have been a higher amount of punts returned from inside the 10 and 5 than I previously remember ever. And it comes down to one thing. NFL coordinators are not letting kickers and punters beat them anymore. Now, while this might just feel like a bit of an anticlimactic ending, what I wanted to point out is that we see ebbs and flows like this all the time in the NFL. As fullbacks phased out, as inside linebackers and defensive linemen got bigger, the quarterbacking dominance resulted in some of the scariest pass rushers entering the league and the prominence of the 2 high safety. And that's all that this is we are seeing that ebb and flow in the special teams realm, as kickers and punters got so good that now coordinators are going out of their way to try to knock them back down a peg. And like I alluded to earlier, the biggest main themes is that every single gap on a field goal unit is going to be tested and going to have that trigger pulled right at the end of the game in the most clutch situations, as to not show their hand too early. And on punt returns, they are just telling guys not to fair catch punts. I mean, just last week, the Panthers punter hit a 30-yard, 4.5-second hang time punt that was not fair caught inside the 15. This is usually a just routine play, but the way that the Patriots dialed it up was more aggressive than anything we had seen. And we even saw the Panthers try to do the same thing as they returned the ball from inside the 5-yard line. This is just the overarching theme of what's happening. The return units, the block units are just getting more aggressive as the fight against specialists continues to rage on. Now, if you have your own thoughts as to why this is happening, I'd love to hear them, but this is my true analysis on what I think is going on.